Hi everyone, welcome back to Book of Star. This is episode 2 of Meant to Be Wise, where I get to chat with some of my girlfriends. As we build an intimate relationship with God, He reveals to us characteristics of our husbands while we're still single. Today we're talking about the choices that you make. So for some of us, God has revealed to us who our husband was, but we're still not with them. And we're going to share with you that story. We also have a special treat. We have our friend Sheneika on, who's already married, and she's going to share her story with us. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, so welcome.
Thanks for having us.
To be here. Honor.
Let's just jump right into the conversation. So, did you ever date someone who God told you was your husband, but it didn't work out, and why is that?
Yeah, I have to say yes. My last relationship, I have to say in the early parts of it, I felt like God had said to me that he was my husband, but I felt like our values and our morals weren't aligned. And so it was a situation where it had to end. And then we didn't speak for about 7 months. And then when he reached out again and we started talking, things were a lot different in the sense, spiritually, we're in a different place, and a place that I wanted to be in initially. So, we were praying together, going to church together, even talks of doing Bible study together. So in my mind, as I'm praying, I'm like, God, these are the things that I was asking for, and these are the things that are changing. Is this the right direction? You know what I mean? But while I was in this relationship, I was having dreams of other men. I woke up feeling like these are certain gems that God are revealing to me that my husband is going to have. You know what I mean? And he didn't embody any of those.
I feel like something similar happened to me too. I remember being with my ex-boyfriend for probably about 4 years. But I remember around that 4-year mark, it didn't seem like we were going anywhere. So I just kept asking God, is this the guy for me? Is this my husband? And I remember one time being in my room and hearing God say to me, because it's like I wasn't moving until he answered me. And I remember hearing God say to me, yes, that's your husband. So I'm like, okay, great. Now I know we can move forward. And I ended up messaging my ex-boyfriend, God said you're my husband, we can move forward, we're good. And then 2 weeks later, God said to break up with him. And I was like, what? God kept telling me, remember Abraham. So I'm like, okay, well, God told Abraham to sacrifice his son, his only son, well, second son. But he didn't really sacrifice him because God provided the ram in the bush. So I thought, okay, that's what God is telling me. He's telling me, trust me, leave him right now, but I will present him back to you when he's ready. No, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. It took me 2 years later to break up with him. And when we did end up breaking up, it was worse than if we would have just broke up 2 years prior.
Wow. No, I actually really love that star. And I just felt like I heard the ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that scenario that came to me is obedience, right? For me personally, I was not dating, but I had a lot of male friends as well too. That I pray with, that I had Bible study with, and I'm just like, God isn't him. God isn't him. But and it's so uncomfortable, and I realize sometimes too, being around them, even if you're not dating, having that time of prayer and time of reading the word is an intimate thing. You might need to cut that off too, just so that you don't get confused when God may have somebody coming for you, and you don't want that to be a blockage too in that area.
Girl, first of all, what you just said is everything, especially because what you talk about is you're forming soul ties that way. If you're having Bible study and having conversations, you're forming soul ties with someone who may not even be your husband. The thing is, sometimes we don't think of soul ties in that manner. We just think of soul ties after you have sex. But it's no, you can form the soul tie when you're having conversation, when you're praying with the person, when you're doing Bible study with the person. So this question is for Sheneika. When you met your husband, did you know he was your husband?
No, I didn't. I didn't want anything to do with him. But he knew that I was going to be his wife. So when I first started going to the church, he was an usher at the church. So I had, quite a few encounters with him. And he always had these googly eyes. And I'm like, here we go with this guy again. So I would just always, have cordial conversations with him, but just always, push it to the side. And so with that, he just kept pursuing for like 4 to 5 years. He just kept pursuing, and I just kept pushing him off.
How did your past hurts impact your relationship before you got married?
When I was younger, my parents separated at the age of 7. They were divorced. So I felt that growing up. I dealt with a lot of rejection from family members, a lot of rejection with friends and men. So always feeling that rejection, always feeling that abandonment. Like I'm not good enough. So never feeling completely confident, not knowing who I am, my identity in Christ. So when I got into a relationship, I thought that I was good. I thought that I was fine, but those things started to spring up. So when my husband and I got together, I pushed him away. I pushed him away a lot because I said to myself, I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to self-sabotage before you can do it to me. And in the process, I was hurting him. I was hurting him. I was hurting what the promise that God had for us. During that time, it was about 2 years, and he kind of had enough, and he said, I can't do this anymore. And he actually broke up with me. And I could have easily pointed the finger, but I had to actually take responsibility and see the part that I played. So during that time that we were separated, I was able to heal from those things. I was able to really allow God to really do the inner work in me, finding my identity in him truly. So now that we're married, I just think about the times where if I wasn't obedient in the healing process, that I would be going through so much in my marriage today.
That healing process during the singleness is so important. The thing is, you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
You get to. Like, being single isn't a sentence. It's a time where it's like, it's just me and God, and the things that are inside of me, he's gonna pull it out. This year, God had drew out of me sexual trauma that I didn't even know was there. Like, I had no desire to have sex with my husband. And I kept thinking to myself, you know what? When we get married, we'll just work it out then. And I was burying it so deep that I wasn't even paying attention to it. And God's like, girl, I need you to open your heart. And I need to heal you from this. And he was telling me, like, you don't have to wait till you're married for me to heal you from that. I can do it right now. And so we did take the time so that he could heal me from it. Sex is one of the things that Satan uses to destroy marriages.
Yeah.
And so me thinking, we can just deal with that in my marriage, we would have had so much problems in the very beginning, especially if I'm like, I don't even want you to touch me.
Even to add to that, there was a moment where, during the time that we were separated, I felt, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do my life. I know he's doing him. I'm going to do me. And, there were guys that actually approached me. So for me, it was like, okay, this is my chance to move on. And every time I tried to move on, I felt this guilt in my heart. And I'm like, where is that coming from? And, I would ask God about it, and I wouldn't hear anything. And I would try and proceed on with someone else. And I remember the Holy Spirit saying to me, you are still to carry yourself as his wife.
Yeah.
And I remember from that point, I cried and I repented. And I had a choice. Can I just go on with what my flesh would make sense? Or can I still, stand strong in what God told me and stand on his promise? Like, okay, God, I'm still going to carry myself. I'm still going to be obedient, even though it doesn't look like it. I had a choice at that moment to settle or wait for God to do the work and reunite us back together. And he did. He kept his promise.
Girl, I'm about to cry. I mean, that is so beautiful, especially because 4 years ago, God gave me a dream. But I remember, like, the interpretation for the dream was for me to hold on to the promise, but I did not yet know what the promise was. And then in 2019, God showed me the promise in the dream, where he showed me my husband and like what our life was going to be like.
And then God told me now in 2020 that he's going to move me, and where he's going to place me, everything that I went through is going to make sense. So I'm like, okay, waiting to be placed. Girl, God told me to pack my boxes 3 months ago. He's like, I'm moving you, get packed. I packed my boxes and they are still sitting here.
I'm still in the same place that I was 3 months ago. And when God told me to pack, it was this urgency, like, you need to do it now. So like, I'm packing, my boxes are sitting in the corner, and let me tell you, they have been mocking me. I mean, like, laughing at me, like, oh, you packed too soon. You packed up. God told you that he's moving you and you didn't even go anywhere yet. And I feel like in your story, I just relate to it so much, because God's like, hold on to the promise, because what he has is his very best.
I'm sorry, that was so good, because I too have boxes packed, so you're not by yourself. But it also came through like confirmation from like other friends who had dreams, like, as well. And him forcing me and pushing me and telling me to do this at this particular time. And like, everybody is like, girl, you sure? You look crazy, like, right now. I'm like, no, he has me doing this at this particular time. He told me to do this, and it's not comfortable, and it doesn't feel good to be in that space. But I feel like it's a transitional space that he has us in right now too. And also an act of faith. So I was like, all right, God, when I write this book about me, packing these boxes, you're gonna be like, it's gonna bless so many women, because I think sometimes we think it has to happen in this order, and if it happens like this, it's God, right? But God is like, I do the things that I want the way that I want it done. So at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, God, I'm gonna trust that you're telling me this.
Thank you for letting me know I ain't crazy. You packed your boxes too.
Yes, girl.
Okay, is cultivating your relationship with God important to your marriage?
In order to have that clarity, like, we have to be in a good place, with our relationship with God, to hear on so many different things. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like in my career as well, when we talk about like God doing things the way that he wants to do them, like, I remember 3 years ago now, where I was like not happy and like praying to God to change things, and I couldn't see the change in sight. And I had in my mind what the plan was going to be and how we're going to execute this plan. And God was like, no, pump your brakes. I got control of this, and I'm going to do it my way. In my opinion, it was an ugly way, but he literally gave me everything that I had asked for. I feel like too, that's why sometimes he allows us to go through certain uglies, because he's just like, I want you to come out of this trusting me even more, and knowing that this was me. This was all me and nobody else, and none of you.
Amen.
I absolutely, totally agree 100%. I am with, female clients all the time, and I've seen them kind of lose hope, right, in the area of like marriage. But when we lose that hope and that vision of what God has for us, and I feel it's affected so many women, and their lack of faith, and also their walk with God. And so to me, I've really had to work on, okay, God, I believe that whatever you have for me is going to happen regardless. But I want to make sure that my relationship with you is solid, that I hear you, that when you're telling me to go right, it's right. When you're telling me to go left, it's left. And it's so sharp and so clear that when I get into this marriage, I will know, and also too, we will be on the same page, the same mindset as far as what God is calling us to do together.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Cultivating a relationship with God is number one. I have to be able to hear God clearly, especially when it pertains to my marriage. I have to hear when there's an attack about to come, or what I need to cover. I have to be able to hear God with that. And if I don't have a relationship with him, how can he protect me?
Right.
How can I have my covering? If something's going on with my husband that he hasn't expressed to me vocally just yet, it's God who's going to reveal that to me. Here, Sheneika, pray for him for this. He's going through this. I need to have a relationship with God so I can know how to approach my husband, how to approach certain situations that are so important.
Amen. Y'all ladies are preaching. I'm telling you. So we are at the end of our conversation, and I'm just so grateful that we got to do this. If anything, I want ladies to watch this and realize how important it is to have a personal relationship with God. Like, yeah, it's great that he's revealing stuff to us about our husbands. He's revealing stuff to us about ourselves. But that personal relationship with him lets us know his power. He lets us know, like, our power in him, how we really can't do anything without him. And I think that is, like, the greatest story.
Amen.
Amen.